Good morning. I'm waiting for Facebook to tell me that it's actually working. So we'll see. It usually takes a couple seconds, but not really that long. And there we go. We are live. So good morning, everybody. My name is Colleen Mitchell. I'm a life coach, a writer, a host of a podcast on type 1 diabetes, and I also have a full-time job working in the power industry. For my side business, which is coaching, I focus on helping lady entrepreneurs create financial independence in their lives by getting to the root of how they spend their time and making really powerful decisions to honor their calendars. Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. So what we're talking about today is rejection. It's a fun topic, right? Well, I think that most fears actually come down to the fear of rejection. For most of human history, the approval and acceptance of other people is how we stayed alive. Because rejection meant death. We still carry those fears today, even though getting cut off or cast out from a group doesn't necessarily mean that we need to fend for ourselves against wild animals or the elements. But our brains don't know the difference. So today we're going to talk about how to deal with that fear of rejection today in the age where all it is a negative feeling. So what does the fear of rejection actually stop us from doing? Well, it can stop us from doing what we truly want to do. It can stop us from starting or building a business. It can stop us from writing books or sharing our creativity, our art. It stops us from taking risks, from changing who we are, from being honest and vulnerable with the people we care about. It can stop us from telling someone that we love them. And it can stop us from going against the grain, especially in today's crazy world. Now, the first step to fixing anything is awareness. Just knowing that you're afraid of rejection is the first and maybe the biggest hurdle to jump over. When you're aware of the problem, you are much more likely to even want to figure out how to solve the problem. So I have a question for you. Did you know that all fear is actually a choice? If you've never experienced cave darkness before, you might be surprised to learn that cave darkness is the most pitch black darkness that a human can ever experience. It presses against the body, and even if you hold your hand directly in front of your eyeballs, you wouldn't even see it. So I experienced cave darkness like this in spring of 2018 when I visited the Cave of the Winds in Colorado Springs, Colorado. The tour guide had everybody extinguish their lamps really deep in the cave system, and we all just plunged into cave darkness. Some people got really scared, but I kind of just thought it was really cool, if not a bit creepy, but that might have had something more to do with all of the haunting stories that they were talking about down in the caves. Jen Sincero, who wrote You Are a Badass, it's a good book, so she tells a story about when she and a friend crawled into a cave system, and then once they were really deep inside, they turned off their flashlights. And Jen could immediately feel the fear just crawling into and around her body until she realized that she could choose her experience. And she consciously chose not to fear the darkness. So when she emerged from the cave, she had a different perspective on life as a whole. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is something called fear archetypes. Ruth Soukup, who is a blogger, a business owner, she's really cool. She developed the fear archetype assessment. And that helps you understand how fear shows up in your life. She wrote a book called Do It Scared. She actually has a podcast called the Doing It Scared podcast with Ruth Soukup. She also gave a TED Talk on fear archetypes in November of 2019. And the funny thing is that she was scared of giving that TED Talk. So she actually worked through this herself. Her podcast is about how to move past fear and create a life that you love. That's kind of her tagline. And her fear archetype is the outcast. That just basically means that she fears rejection so much that she rejects other people first. Now, my top fear archetypes, the last time I took this quiz, are people pleaser, surprise, surprise, procrastinator, which didn't really surprise me, and rule follower. For me, my people pleaser nature is all about that fear of rejection. I don't want the people that I look up to, the people that I trust and respect, I don't want them to reject me. Why? Well, it's painful. When someone who means a lot to me doesn't reciprocate that thought or feeling, I can make it mean that there's something wrong with me. Now, being a procrastinator, which is actually the flip side of being a perfectionist, that means that I'm afraid to put things out before they're perfect because of the risk that someone might reject it. It all comes down to the fear of rejection. I don't want people to think less of me based on how they perceive my creative contributions. It took me a long time to start doing Facebook Lives because I'm a perfectionist. And I'm a rule follower because I don't want to get in trouble or rejected for coloring outside of the lines. There's always that risk of not following the rules, meaning that you'll be cast out from the tribe. And that all goes back to the primitive brain wanting to keep us safe. So at its core, all of the fear archetypes have something in common: how you experience the fear of rejection. And what's even more mind-boggling is that we can reject ourselves. What if we try doing something and get too big for our britches? Have you ever had someone tell you that? We're afraid of who we might become in the future. So we reject ourselves ahead of time by holding ourselves back just in case someone might reject us later. It's crazy. Now, what I want to talk about now is something called the model. Now, fear happens in the brain based on how we think of our realities. And I want to take a moment here to preface that I did not come up with this. I learned this from Brooke Castillo. She's the master coach instructor at the Life Coach School, and she's also the host of the Life Coach School podcast. Now, the model is also called the self-coaching model. I use this with my clients. I use this on myself. I even use this when I'm talking to other people. It's true for every result we create in our lives, including the fear of rejection. Now, you can analyze and solve literally any emotional suffering problem using the model. It's made up of 5 parts: a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, our actions, and the result. Now, I'm going to go through an example of the model in action, and the example I'm going to use is public speaking. Now, this is a very common fear. More common, probably, than dying. I heard that Jerry Seinfeld once said that most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. Now, I have historically had a massive hatred for public speaking. So here we go. Circumstances. A circumstance is factual and agreed upon by everybody. A lawyer could prove it in a court of law. The phrase, "I'm bad at public speaking," is actually a thought, not a circumstance. The phrase, "I am on the conference agenda," is a circumstance, because if you look at the agenda, my name is on the page. Thoughts are what Brooke Castillo calls sentences in the brain. It's a single sentence without any conjunctions like and, but, or if. I can't speak in front of more than 100 people is a thought. And thoughts, all thoughts, are optional. Now, feelings, circumstances don't cause feelings. We like to think that they do. But what happens is we have thoughts about circumstances, and those thoughts cause feelings. All feelings are created by thoughts. Now, this is different from a sensation in the body. So touching my hand, that is a physical sensation. Nausea is a physical sensation. I can have thoughts about that sensation that cause a feeling or an emotion. So we're distinguishing between feelings as an emotion and sensations as a feeling. Feelings or emotions are vibrations in the body. That's what Brooke calls them. And we can describe them in terms of position in the body, the sensation it causes, like we just talked about. Maybe it's texture, its shape, temperature, if it's moving or not. A lot goes into a feeling. I've found that when I'm feeling anxiety, I feel it in my diaphragm, just below my diaphragm, and it's a swooping sensation. And I know this feeling very well because it happens every morning when I'm cleaning out my coffee filter in the sink. It's really weird. But it's also a single word, like disgusted, or fearful, or anxious, happy, joyful, determined. Those are all emotions. They're one word. So now when I think the thought, I can't speak in front of more than 100 people, I feel scared. Actions. We always take actions based on how we feel. And when we have more positive feelings, the actions we take are more positive. And a lot can go into the action line of the model. These are behaviors that we do or don't do. Taking no action is something you don't do, which means it can go here. When I feel scared about my thought, I don't practice my presentation. I don't put the time in to memorize it. I put it off. Remember, I'm a procrastinator. I could spin in my thoughts about everything that I could fail at. Maybe I walk onto stage to forget my lines, or I trip over my own feet, or I drop the microphone. See, none of these are good things that would happen. I also would shrink back from accepting the possibility that everything will go horribly wrong. Results are just like that. They're results. They're the results of our actions. Now, it's important to recognize how our actions create our results. When I do or don't do the things in the action line, what happens? For me in particular. And it's important also to remember that the result line is about you. It doesn't have anything to do with other people. The results will also always provide evidence for the thought, or they will be a reflection of or related to the thought. The results those actions create that I talked about for not preparing for the presentation are that I fail ahead of time and I'm not prepared to speak in front of over 100 people. All based on that thought. It's trippy, right? And when I think that thought, that I can't speak to more than 100 people, I prove it ahead of time. Now, it's really helpful to do models every day to help manage how you think about anything, not just fear. And you can do models on scrap papers, in the fog on a mirror after a shower, or a cocktail napkin, on your copy of a conference agenda. I actually do them every morning in a dedicated notebook, which is right here. This is my dedicated notebook. And I also do thought downloads every day. Now, I want to preface here, or post-preface, I guess, that using the model is not intended to change your feelings. You can follow a model all the way through, but the goal of it is to actually feel the feelings you're feeling. It's not to avoid the feelings or change the thoughts you're having right away. The goal of the model is to feel, not to feel better. So that first model that I showed you is called an unintentional model because it's not a thought that I actually consciously want to have. If the circumstance is that my name is on the conference agenda, the thought is I can't speak to more than 100 people, the feeling is scared, the actions are what we discussed earlier, I don't practice my presentation, I don't put in the time to memorize it, all of that, and then I fail ahead of time by not being prepared to speak in front of 100 people. When you spell it out like that, doing CTFAR, it's really easy to see what the real problem is, the thought. And this is kind of a spoiler alert, but this is a model with potential actions and results from 5 years ago. I don't believe this model anymore. In February of this past year, I presented at not one, but 2 company conferences. And they were actually really big successes that I'm speaking again to the company even more. And I want to share with you the model that actually got me there. So the intentional model for this starts with the exact same circumstance. My name is on the conference agenda. The thought this time is, I can't wait to share my message with my coworkers. The feeling that generates is excitement. So my actions are that I put in the time to polish my presentation. I actually memorized the outline or the script. I practiced and rehearsed for between 40 and 50 hours ahead of the presentation slots. I actually gave myself practice presentations to my Toastmasters club. I did full run-throughs the week of the conference in my hotel room before and after the conference day. I also stood on the stage before anyone else arrived to get a feel for the space, to kind of walk around and know what it would feel like to look out at the audience. I also did power poses in the bathroom, or while I was standing off to the side against the wall, I would just kind of stand up there and do a power pose. And then the other thing I did was breathe deeply. I do something called 4-7-8 breathing, and that is breathing in for a count of 4, holding it for 7, and then breathing out for a count of 8, and breathing in through the nose and then breathing out through the mouth. And this actually calms down the vagus nerve and slows the heart rate, and that helps reduce the anxiety. The result from all those actions is that I actually delivered the presentation flawlessly. I didn't have any ums, I didn't have any filler words, I didn't have any awkward pauses. The only time that I messed up is switching 2 paragraphs in my presentation, but nobody noticed because nobody but me actually knew the script. And I also got to show that I know what I'm talking about. and I successfully shared the message that I wanted to share with my company. And that is a lot more positive than fearing that my company will maybe reject me for even sharing my message with them. So once you know what the problem is, fear of rejection, it's simple to fix. Simple, but maybe not easy. Changing the thought to one that will generate a feeling that actually helps you move past the fear is simple, but again, not necessarily easy. And remember, the goal of the model is to actually feel, not to feel better. So you want to really sit with that fear of rejection first before you try to change it. And I think it can take a long time and a lot of constant work to identify ladder thoughts that maybe don't get you all the way there in one fell swoop, but they get you closer. So my question for you is, what are you thinking that's keeping you stuck in fear? I want to challenge you to try to do a model to figure it out. And if you need help with this, please let me know, because I can walk you through this. You can start the model from any of the lines, and you can work up or down to fill the rest. You can keep asking yourself questions like, what am I thinking about this? How does thinking this thought make me feel? What do I do when I feel like that? And what do my actions create in my life? Managing your mind takes practice. It's something I'm still working on, and I will probably be working on for the rest of my life. And like me, it's also something you'll probably have to do for the rest of your life if you accept that. There will never be one moment where you've made it and you can stop managing your mind anymore. And the best news ever right now is that once you master the skill with your fears, you can apply it to literally any area of your life, and you can create things for yourself beyond stepping into the person that you were already meant to be. Excuse me. Now, if you want to ditch the fear, the best place to start is right inside your own head. Now, if this message resonated with you and you're interested in learning more on how to use the model, not just for overcoming the fear of rejection, but also for other problems in your life, please reach out for coaching. The direct link to book a free 60-minute consultation is in the description of the video. And I want to thank you for joining me today, because we will be back again next week for another coaching session or another topic. I will see you all then. Thank you.